ladies and gentlemen, we are so delighted to be participants of this conference and sharing it with you. And let us begin. Let me introduce my colleague, my friend, my boss, and my teacher, Natalia Andreevna Pishuk, and she's the teacher of honor of Ukraine. And it's not just the title, it's the essence of her work daily. Thanks.
Natalia Beladichuk, my colleague, my friend, not my boss, teaching methodologies, very creative, not different in her way. Thank you, Natalia, for being my friend and my colleague.
Thank you. So, although it is popularly believed that actions speak louder than words, we know, it is often vice versa, that words are what call us to actions in the first place. And it is believed in the power of words and the motivation behind them, that it is the basis for the curriculum unit. Teaching through great American speeches. And our theme today is teaching through speeches to reinforce learning concept. So there are two questions here. What is speeches? What is a speech basically? And what is rhetoric? Let's begin with rhetoric first. So according to World English Dictionary, rhetoric as a noun is the study of the technique of using language effectively. Effectively is a key word. And what is speech? According to Macmillan Dictionary, English says, it is speech as a definition is a formal occasion when someone speaks to an audience. And that's what we try to do daily. So, I'd like to switch to the idea how it all began.
Okay, how did it all begin? Back then in November 2009, we came up with an interesting idea to create a lesson tribute to Michael Jackson. Yes, a special kind of lesson, a lesson tribute. It was literally a great idea at that time because Michael Jackson always was, and I think is, very popular. His death was really a shock for everybody, even for those who seemed to be indifferent to his singing, to his dancing, to his acting on stage. We began to live, creating the lesson day by day, a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of weeks or for months. Suddenly, I came across online speech titled Madonna pays tearful tribute to Michael Jackson at 2009 Video Music Awards, September 13, 2009. It was great. After I listened to it online, I could hardly say a word. That is the beginning of my lesson tribute. I thought, frankly speaking, back then I did not have slightest idea how to work with speeches, interestingly, and I did not have any experience. Such was the beginning. And now, and then while reading the tape script, I understood that it is not enough just to read it and to listen to it on YouTube. Every part of that good speech was unique for me. It was worth having a deep dig. So before giving our students a special assignment to listen it to on YouTube, we decided to work with vocabulary, with lexics, and now we will do it with you. Will you?
Sure. So if you just take a quick look through the papers we provided you with, you will see the beginning of her speech, and we'd like you to listen to it. It will take us just 4 minutes. Let's listen and enjoy, and then let's work with it. All right. Thank you.
Michael Jackson.
I have a little bit more to say than that. Okay, here we go again. Michael Jackson was born in August 1958. So was I. Michael Jackson grew up in the suburbs of the Midwest. So did I. Michael Jackson had 8 brothers and sisters. So do I. When Michael Jackson was 6, he became a superstar and was perhaps the world's most beloved child. When I was 6, my mother died. I think he got the shorter end of the stick. I never had a mother, but he never had a childhood. And when you never get to have something, you become obsessed by it. I spent my childhood searching for my mother figures. Sometimes I was successful. But how do you recreate your childhood when you are under the magnifying glass of the world for your entire life? There is no question that Michael Jackson was one of the greatest talents the world has ever known. That when he sang a song at the ripe old age of 8, he could make you feel like an experienced adult was squeezing your heart with his words. That the way he moved had the elegance of Fred Astaire and packed the punch of Muhammad Ali. That his music had an extra layer of inexplicable magic that didn't just make you want to dance, but actually made you believe that you could fly, dare to dream, be anything that you wanted to be. Because that is what heroes do, and Michael Jackson was a hero. He performed in soccer stadiums around the world. He sold hundreds of millions of records. He dined with prime ministers and presidents. Girls fell in love with him. Boys fell in love with him. Everyone wanted to dance like him. He seemed otherworldly, but he was also a human being.
My treat, I'll drive, just you and me. He agreed and showed up to my house without any bodyguards. We drove to the restaurant in my car. It was dark out, but he was still wearing sunglasses. I said, Michael, I feel like I'm talking to a limousine. Do you think you could take off those glasses so I can see your eyes? He paused for a moment, then he tossed the glasses out the window, looked at me with a wink and a smile and said, can you see me now? Is that better? In that moment, I could see both his vulnerability and his charm. The rest of the dinner, I was hell-bent on getting him to eat French fries, drink wine, have dessert, and say bad words. Things he never seemed to allow himself to do. Later, we went back to my house to watch a movie, and we sat on the couch like 2 kids, and somewhere in the middle of the film, his hand snuck over and held mine. He felt like a human being. We went out a few more times together, and then for one reason or another, we fell out of touch. Then, the witch hunt began. And it seemed like one negative story after the other was coming out about Michael. I felt his pain. I know what it's like to walk down the street and feel like the whole world is turned against you. I know what it's like to feel helpless and unable to defend yourself because the roar of the lynch mob is so loud that you are convinced your voice. And I was allowed to make mistakes and find my own way in the world without the glare of the spotlight. When I first heard that Michael had died, I was in London, days away from the opening of my tour. Michael was going to perform in the same venue as me a week later. All I could think about in that moment was, I had abandoned him. That we had abandoned him. That we had allowed this magnificent creature that once set the world on fire to somehow slip through the cracks. While he was trying to build a family and rebuild his career, we were all busy passing judgment. To hold on to his memory, I went on the internet to watch old clips of him dancing and singing on TV and on stage. And I thought, my God, he was so unique, so original, so rare. And there will never be anyone like him again. He was a king. But he was also a human being. And alas, we are all human beings. And sometimes we have to lose things before we can truly appreciate them. I want to end this on a positive note and say that my sons, aged 9 and 4, are obsessed with Michael Jackson. There's a whole lot of crotch grabbing and moonwalking going on in my house.
And it seems like a whole new generation of kids has discovered his genius and are bringing him to life again. I hope that wherever Michael is right now, he is smiling about this. Yes, Michael Jackson was a human being. Damn it, he was a king. Long live the king.
All right, just a 4-minute speech, and it is so stunning, so impressive, and it is just great. We are so used to seeing Madonna performing on stage, and we as teachers and just, you know, admirers were amazed of how great she can, in a great way she can deliver a speech. She was so clear, she was so logical, emotional, she was so precise, and she was so illustrative that we could not manage but come up with the idea of a system of work. It was a need and it was a must.
It was a must. And before giving the assignment to our students listening on YouTube the speech, so we work with every speech with vocabulary. So we find synonyms, antonyms, idioms, and whatnot. And now take the speech, please, and we will do it. Try to do it together as we do it with our students, okay? So, okay, for example, first, find in the first paragraph, in the first passage, affirmative and negative agreements. Please, affirmative. When Michael Jackson was 6, he became a superstar and was perhaps the world's most beloved child. When I was 6, my mother died. I think he got the shorter end of the stick. It's idiom. What does it mean to have the shorter end of the stick?
Translated literally, we understand what it is, but it is an idiomatic expression, and another visual aid was needed, and it is provided. It is always provided.
So try to translate. Got the shorter end of the stick.
He wasn't as lucky as others.
Yes, and sometimes we demonstrate what is the shorter end of the stick. So I want you to go and to fetch some water, and you do not want, and I ask you, you do not want, I ask you, you do not want, and then I say, so who will get the shorter end of the stick? And then I break one match and put it here and do it like this. So take this. Okay. Yes, it's you. But the shorter end of the stick, it is something like in our language, yes? Okay. And when you never get to have something, you become obsessed by it. So give me synonyms, obsessed by it. Obsessed, crazy about, fondle,
Eager to get.
yes. I spent my childhood searching for my mother figures. Okay, searching for? Looking for. Sometimes I was successful, but how do you recreate your childhood when you are under the magnifying glass of synonym, to be under magnifying glass?
To be scrutinized.
Right? Just at least 5 synonyms, that's what we want to get as a feedback from our students, and they usually come up with 5, even more.
You are in the spotlight, yes, also. The world for entire life. Entire life? The whole life, yes. There is no question that Michael Jackson was one of the greatest talents the world has ever known. A ripe old age of 8. Everybody knows ripe old age, yes? And give me translate, ripe old age of 8. В свої вже дорослі 8 років. Yes. В свої вже дорослі 8 років.
Right? Like being mature at the age of 8. Imagine that.
Another passage. He performed in soccer stadiums. Okay, soccer stadium, synonym, football stadium, football pitch, yes. Girls fell in love with him, boys fell in love with him. So similar expressions with fall in love. So we call it 4 falls. Fall in love, fall asleep, fall, in thought, yes, fall, you, yes. With him. Boys fell in love, everyone wanted to dance like him. He seemed, he seemed otherworldly. But he was also a human being. Like most performers, he was shy and plagued with insecurities. Plagued, synonym. Suffered, yes, suffered. I can't say we were great friends, but in 1991 I decided I wanted to get to know synonyms, to get to know, to learn, to find out, to figure out, yes. He paused for a moment, then he tossed glasses out of the window, and sometimes we say,
We also
show me, demonstrate,
by
how can it be? Toss glasses, sunglasses, yes, toss. Just translation, looked at me with a wink. Подивився на мене і with a wink. Or demonstrated, look at me with a wink and smile, please. Look at us with a wink and smile.
Joe, thank you very much.
Can you see me now? Is it better? And the rest of the dinner, I was hell bent on getting him to eat French fries, drink wine, have dessert, and say bad words. And then we may ask, and what are three things you think you have never done in your life? So Michael Jackson did not eat French fries, drink wine, say bad words, and what about you? Something like this. And then later we went back to my house to watch a movie, and we sat on the couch like two kids, a synonym for coach. Something like this, you see? It's just a minute of vocabulary web, but it's always great because it gives them something like brainstorm.
So in general, as you say, it would be quite difficult to teach them just grammar rules and expecting great feedback. So what we do it through this great piece of work through speeches. So we do get understanding affirmative agreement as it is demonstrated, so they have to control the auxiliary verbs, they understand it should be in correlation with the previous sentence or something like this. They boost up their synonyms and antonyms in terms of increasing their vocabulary. Also, they get them to know some reference information about these two personalities, and also they understand to identify the correct context for using these or that idiom, because you know sometimes idioms are quite confusing. You can know the idiom, you can know the translation, but you will find it difficult to use it in the context, so they have to control it all together. And also quotations. You know, even you, I'm sure you can quotate Madonna from the start. You already loved 3 or 4 sentences of hers, didn't you? And finally, humor. She is so gentle, but she humorizes, right? She is self-critical, and well, that's what we teach our students to follow. And you know, Madonna is the idol, and Michael Jackson is the king. And our students learn best when they learn from such models. They do. Thank you. So, you know what, another thing we can afford today, as we are locals, we have a privilege and a great luxury to have our students invited here. There are 4 students here, they are all from the same class, they are 9th graders, and the same group, just regular students. Nothing special. Yeah, they are the fresh frogs at our museum, because we start teaching our students at the age of 14 when they are 9th graders. And not all of them came to our school being excellent students in English, but you know, we got motivated students. We got them turned to this kind of work, and now they are excellent in English, though we are not sure about other subjects. You will excel them later, but now let's focus on English. And amazing it is, but what they do, they not only they go through vocabulary and grammar, they come up with learning and covering the whole speech almost 100%. Believe it or not, no matter how long the speech is, Madonna's speech is 4 minutes, and we have longer speeches like 15, maybe 20, even longer. But they are so involved and engaged in the activity that they come up with knowing, imitating, basically being Madonna, delivering her speech. Well, if you don't mind, we'd like to invite Slavik Marduk to just give you a part of how it sounds when students perform it. Okay? Slavik, will you? Now you are under the magnifying glass, right?
Michael Jackson. I have a little bit notices in that. Okay, here we go again. Michael Jackson was born in August 1958, so was I. Michael Jackson grew up in the suburbs of the Midwest, so did I. When Michael was 6, he became a superstar and was perhaps the world's most beloved child. When I was 6, my mother died. I think she got the shit end of this deed. I never had a mother, but he never had a childhood. And when you never get to have something, you become obsessed by it. I spent my childhood searching for mother figures. Sometimes I was successful. But how do you recreate a childhood when you're under the magnifying glass of the world? There is no question that Michael Jackson is one of the greatest talents the world has ever known. Then when he sang a song at the ripe old age of 8, he could make it feel like an experienced adult was squeezing your heart with his words. Then when he moved the elegance of Fred Astaire and packed the punch of Muhammad Ali, that his music had an extra layer of inexplicable magic that didn't just make you want to dance, but actually made believe you could fly, dare to dream, be anything that you wanted to be, because it's what heroes do, and Michael Jackson was a hero. He was shy and plagued with insecurities. I can't say we're great friends, but in 1991 I decided I wanted to try to get to know him better. I asked him out to dinner. I said, my treat, I'll try, just you and me. He agreed and showed up to my house without any bodyguards. We drove to the restaurant in my car. It was dark out, but he was still wearing sunglasses. I said, Michael, do you think I said, Michael, I feel like I'm talking to a limousine. Do you think you can take off your glasses so I can see your eyes? Then he tossed his glasses out the window, looked at me with a wink and a smile and said, can you see me now? Is it better?
Okay, Slavik, thank you very much. Slavik, have a seat. He doesn't want to have a seat because he knows this speech very
It was
well.
only yesterday when we asked them to come here.
Come and give us a
and
helpful
do
hand.
it for you, because it's not just for you to present the speech. It is our system of work with speeches, and you see. Okay.
Well, so as you see, Madonna did not take any notes while delivering her speech, and neither did Slavik. Almost. Thank you very much. Well, that's one thing we do, and you know, we got so involved with these activities that we came up with 10 more speeches. And now we are going through them one by one, taking great pleasure, teaching our students, getting them tuned and involved in English. And you know, it works. So, Valentina will keep going and will demonstrate another
Okay, so
part.
we decided to go on working with speeches. The second one was a speech of well-known Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech, 2005. At that time, our level of speeches with our students got something like laboratory, something like language lab, something like workshop or talk shop, or something like that.
Chatting room.
Chatting room, yes. We shaped it and sharpened every idea appearing in our minds. Every interesting proposal was discussed, considered, and accepted. The most active and productive student at that time was Max Budzinski. Now he is a student of Shevchenko University, and we will show his picture later. And frankly speaking, after Madonna, we still did not have a special system of working, and we did it anew. And but we understood that it was really a must. So we have it now, and I'm going to share it personality. So information about Steve Jobs, about Madonna, about Michael Jackson. Yes. Then reading. So reading and translate. Yes, just reading and translating. Every speech we read and translate. It is very important and necessary. Pupils should enlarge their vocabulary and perfect their skills and in translation too. Next, vocabulary word, as we displayed today on Madonna's speech. Yes, vocabulary word. Then listening to YouTube. Yes.
10.
Many
10
times. 10, 20, 30, 40. Alek, how many times did you listen to?
For about 30 or 40, how many times? 50.
50 times.
Did you get tired of
Alek
listening?
listened to speech 50 times. And you? Girls? And then exercises. Yes, we have a lot of exercises. We do it together with students, and it is their homework and something. And then learning by heart. So we give them the assignment, learn by heart. For example, Steve Jobs, 3 stories of my life, and we say, learn the most interesting part of the speech, 1 story, or 2 stories, or half a story, or it's not necessary to learn by heart all the text if it is difficult. And it was a shock. It was a shock for us when the students of the 9th grade, half of the students came and then learned 2 stories. And there were students who learned the whole speech. And we want to show you the board.
Yeah. We have another student, Alexander Solik, come up here, and while you are coming, I will keep talking. You know, there are 3 stories in this Steve Jobs Stanford commencement speech 2005. And they are entitled Connecting the Dots, Love and Loss, About Death. I'd like you to make your choice. Which story out of three you would like Alek to deliver to you? The first, the second, or the third? So let's listen to the first story, which is about connecting the dots. And it is very meaningful and crucial in understanding even some principles of our own life. So let's enjoy listening, and then you will make a choice whether you would like him to deliver the first, the second, or the third story to you.
He wants
To deliver
now
the 3 of them.
speech, but
Don't
just
get done.
15 minutes. But you will choose.
You will make
the
a
number
choice.
of the speech.
Thank you. I'm honored to be with you today for your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world. Truth be told, I never graduated from college, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit. So why did I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was a young, unwed graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife. Except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl. So my parents, who were on a waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We've got an unexpected baby boy." My biological mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life. And 17 years later, I did go to college. But I naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was, spending all the money my parents had saved their entire life. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have a dorm room, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night to get one good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple. I loved it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. The Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have it. If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path.
Thanks for listening. Now, would you please make your choice for the number of the story? Number 2 and number 3. Continuation number 2. About love and loss. 7 stories about love and loss. Would you please? We will stop here.
My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I love to do early in life. Wasn't I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20? We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just 2 of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We had just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had fallen out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. So at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been focused on my entire life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packer and Bob Noyes and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still love what I did. The turn of events at Apple hadn't changed it one bit. I had been rejected, but I was still in love. So I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, not sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar. I fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the first world's animation studio, animation feature film Toy Story, and now is the most successful studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next. I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lawrence and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if we hadn't found from Apple. It was all fantastic and massive, but I guess the passion needed it. Sometimes life hits the head with brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was the love of what I did. You've got to find what you love, and that is as true for your work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to love it, is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As results matter with the heart, you will nobody find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking until you find it. Don't settle.
Thank you. Well, he's capable, like all of them, of going, but we are pressed for time, so we'll just proceed with our kind of work. So, this learning by heart concept is not the only feedback we as teachers get from our students. Another example to illustrate the kind of assignment which can be given for our students is essay writing. And it's all about essay writing nowadays. You should be really an expert in writing an essay, and we suggest this idea to our students. As adults, you definitely have no problem with picking up some ideas for your essays, because already we, as adults, we have experience in graduating from school, even college, getting married, maybe having children, even getting divorced. So we got a lot of experience and examples to illustrate the plot for an essay. But being 14 or 15, as our students, it's not so easy to pick up the idea for your essay. Still, our students do great with it. And the girls came up with their short essays in the same logical way as Steve Jobs does. And they untitled their essays as 3 stories of my life, right? We would like the girls to read their essays to you, just to see how the example which is set.
So maybe there are some mistakes. we didn't want to check them, to correct them. So they will read their own essays. Okay.
So, 3 stories from my life. Truth be told, I was amazed by the thing we received. I hope you will all completely agree that we have less experience than Steve Jobs, and not all of us can talk on such serious things as death, love, and loss. I really didn't know what to tell about, but then I fell in thoughts. What do I really want to say? What conclusions have I arrived during my life at? And then I felt the breath of new idea. So the first thing I want to tell about is talent. Actually, I always wondered at this point because my best friends are very gifted people, and now you can see how comfortable I felt when we were talking about talent. I was looking for it, but I couldn't find what I was good at. Then, when I had bothered Miss Vane about lack of talent to all my friends, I understood that I need to release my emotions. So I wrote a story about a little girl, actually about myself, who could not find her destination. And it would all work out okay if my mother did not say it once. She asked me, "Julia, what is this?" "No big deal, Mom," answered I. "Just some of my notes." Her eyes were kept, and she asked me, "Read it aloud." What could I do? I read it. Then my father joined us. They were listening to me attentively, and then, when I finished, I asked, "Is it nonsense?" "No," answered they. "It is fascinating." Since that time, I had never got new ideas out of my head. And now, having tried it by myself, I can say this to you with a bit more certainty. Every person has their own talents. No one is shared of it. Talent is never inside all of us. We only have to wake it up. So, wake it up. Are you really sure that all great people have got no purpose they have become famous? The great people were only lucky to find what they are good at. And then they had kept working to develop their talents and didn't settle. We can do it too. So, my second story is about Pharaoh. If you think that you can go through all your life and make no mistake, you are already wrong. Every our action is threatened to turn out to be a Pharaoh, but it isn't the reason to stop acting. I have lived through a great Pharaoh too. About a year ago, I was taking part in the all-Ukrainian history competition. I had prepared for it seriously about 6 months, but when I received the results, I was shocked, because I saw that I didn't have 1 mark to get the exam of the 3rd grade. Just devastated. I was stressed and depressed. But then I found some inner strength that power inside me to get to take the tutorial. But in this Pharaoh in the tutorial was the best thing that could ever happen to me. Pharaoh is a good base for a new thing. How can you repeat the same mistake twice? Our mistakes are good experience, and great Pharaoh is better than little success, because it leads you to the great victory. And the third story I want to tell you about is faith. There were a lot of situations in my life when I was in great difficulties and nobody believed that I would get over them. Only my inner voice prompted me that I could do it. Every time, my parents and friends were amazed by my achievements. But I had no doubt that I could do that, because I know that faith in your opportunities is the first step to the realization of your dreams. Now I have a dream too, and again nobody believes in this realization. Nobody except me. And I'm not going to step on it. So this is what I wanted to tell about. Our talent is a likeness. Our mistakes are the experience. Our faith is the base of everything. Someday they will lead us to the realization of our dreams. We only have to try. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Julia Zavolokna, the student of our Lyceum.
And now Yana Titya.
Yana Titya. 3 short stories of your life. As you see, while she's going, when there is a need, there is an implementation. Grammar, conditionals, third time,
There are a lot of structures from Steve Jobs.
infinitives, also vocabulary, some statements and comments, and the manner and the style. Well, good example, come on.
My first story is called The Angels Are Real. Well, I think it will be wrong to say that my life had been empty and boring before that, but looking backwards I understand that it's quite true. It happened about 3 years ago. I was sitting on my chair when my mom came to me and whispered, "I must be pregnant." At that moment I couldn't see about anything else. I just knew that I should stand up and go to my mom. I even didn't know what to say. I just came and hugged her. After that, every day, every single day was great and incredibly long at the same time. And everything I dreamed about was the appearing of this child, the most precious treasure for us. So on Tuesday, the 3rd of October at 9:15, my life changed, completely and irreversibly. I remember every minute of those 3 days that I couldn't see my mother while she was at the maternity home. We couldn't visit her as it was a full pandemic. But on Friday, when we came to take her home, I was most excited at every bit. And the minute I saw my mom and the little angel in her hands, I couldn't help crying. And now when people tell me that it's so exhausting and tiresome to have a little brother or sister, I'm just disarrayed because I think that it's quite vice versa. It's really great to know that when you come home, tired from a long, hard day, the only one kiss and smile of this little angel makes you happy. Nothing in the world is more important. And sometimes I think that I will never be able to love someone else more than him. And I'm convinced that the angels are real when I see his eyes. My second story is called The Difference Between a Real Dream and a Fancy One. Do you have a dream, George? Well, I would if I could get some liquid sleep. you have a dream, and maybe you'll accomplish it, but yet you failed. Why? Because you got caught? No, you failed because you had your own dream. After this word, I thought, my God, can all my dreams be wrong? So I started thinking about my fancies and realized that luckily I had no dreams. Actually, I had no dreams at all. Well, the only good moment was I hadn't made bad decisions, but I had no dream. So I told my friends about it, and they said it was impossible. So girls decided to help me find out my dreams. They told me about theirs. They asked, don't you want your parents to always be happy and healthy? Don't you want to enter the best university? Don't you want to marry someone you love and be successful? And I thought, really? Are these your dreams? No, sure, it's very important and I want it so much. I need it because it's part of my life. But it can't be a dream. Have I just said it can be a dream? So here it is. A dream is something you'll never get. That's why I have none. Because sad dreams are not dreams at all. It's a purpose. And it's much better than any fancy dream. So you should understand the difference between a real dream and a fantasy. And don't be afraid if you have none of this. As if you have not fancy dream, it's okay. Because it means that you take your life seriously. And if you have not a real dream, I can just say, keep looking and don't settle. The third story is called Don't Rush Your Life. Well, this story should be the first, and I don't know why I'm telling on the now, but if I put it here, so let me so. After I had read Steve Jobs' stories, I didn't know what to do. What kind of my life story should I tell? I thought. His story being so instructive, and I have not got any of the kind yet. I have not indeed. And I think that it's okay, because I am only 14, going 15. So how come that a 14-year-old girl can tell you my stories? I'm lucky. I had a wonderful childhood, a great family, so I had a very easy life with no one that can teach you. See, this is the essence of childhood, and I think that it's great. But today it's so trendy to mature at an early age. But I can understand why. Adults often say how much they want to return their childhood. So why don't we live this time for real instead of trying to become adults? I'm convinced that it's one of the greatest periods in your life when your parents are with you and when you need not take responsibility. Not yet. Children should stay children as long as they can. So don't hurry up. It's your life. And it's too short to hurry. You can miss something in a rush. So don't miss any part of your life, no matter how difficult it might be. Don't hurry up to live your childhood. Don't rush your life. Thank you.
She managed to do the second story of her life in the form of a dialogue. We didn't expect that, but she did that. Thank you very much. So let us just scoop up this idea of different assignments while teaching our students speeches with summarizing. So, as you see, while teaching them some oratory skills, we can also teach them use of gestures, control of the voice, again, boosting vocabulary, register, word choice, like synonyms, antonyms, speaking notes to make pictures, use of humor, developing a relationship with the audience, alongside with using difficult grammar constructions, summarizing what they want to say, repetition the ideas in the form of short sentences, maybe interrogative questions, negative questions. That's what they do. And in general, in a regular classroom, it is necessary to utilize a variety of strategies to reach our learners. The material in the curriculum unit provides a multitude of information in which the teacher can reach in exact information and decide which strategies would work best to convey the information at hand. These strategies would include some direct instruction, collaborative groups for discussion and analysis, jigsaw reading of various speeches, debates, we love debates in class, and final culminating persuasive essay that can be delivered as a speech to the class as well. So we as teachers, you can imagine how delighting it is to get this kind of feedback after having worked it with our students. And you know, it works like a miracle. Really it does. They all are of the same form. They are age mates and they are not selected. We could have invited some other students. You know, they were just those ones who were most willing. That's why we invited them. So it's all about
They came to us from different schools with different marks and with different language skills is their work.
And to just, to tell you a final word, we would like to represent this book of speeches containing, which is entitled Helpful Hand of Speeches, because it's really a helpful hand at lessons. And there are 10 orators here. Obama, Barack Obama, Steve Jobs, Bill Clinton, Madonna, Graham West, John Kennedy, Bill Gates, George Bush, and Mrs. Kennedy, and also Martin Luther King. So, yeah, Clinton, both of them. Bush, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. And Natalia Andreevna would like to say a few words about the editor. So these are the three of us who work. Well, this is Natalia Andreevna, me and Max Budzinski. We splitted this work, we came up with this book last year. We splitted the work into manageable parts. Natalia Andreevna is a facilitator of the whole idea. She, came up with it brilliantly, and also she selected these speeches from the net, trying to make the best choice she could. And Maxim was doing the vocabulary work. He was so focused, and at their age, he could help us pointing out those most difficult or maybe necessary vocabulary component for them. And also we came up with the exercises, different kinds, regular kind of exercises, just connected with the speech. So thank you very much.
It is volume 1, and now we are working with volume 2.
Yeah.
Very interesting speeches. For example, Barbara Streisand's speech
annual award for her best part in movies. Also,
Princess Diana's speech, Queen Elizabeth II's speech,
and many others. So this book is all about, American orators, and the second volume is going to be mostly of British speech makers and orators. That's what we split it again to have some, okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your being tolerant.
Thanks for the time spent together. Is the book available? No, we don't divide it, so we didn't have enough time for us to print it, versions. You can, contact us at any time. Thank you very